Hey, it's Mike. How are you? Thanks for taking a look at this video about the fourth and final paper for English 102 here at Holyoke Community College. Without further ado, here we go. So you're being asked to write an essay that examines some aspect or aspects of a specific area of popular culture from the last 10 or so years through the lens of race, class, LGBTQ issues, and or gender. So you're going to be incorporating ideas and theories presented in our class. We're doing critical media theory right now, and we're looking for at least 6 outside sources, 2 of which may be the critical media project pages. Other sources can be any of the articles that we read, including the Molly Ringwald article as an example. So here's some vocab that's going to help you focus and find what I'm looking for here. When we talk about representations in media, we're talking about the portrayal of someone or something or some group in a certain way. An example of this would be the way that for years and years anybody with glasses on television was portrayed as this huge antisocial nerd. Right? That was a typical representation, even though we know that people who have glasses aren't always antisocial and aren't always nerds, right? So that falls into a stereotype. That's an oversimplified pattern, right? Similarly, a depiction is just the way that something is shown, the way that something is represented if you're using visual media, right? Representations tend to be, can be visual media, but certainly depictions always are. So we're talking about representations and depictions and to a lesser extent stereotypes in the discussion board this week. So I just wanted to review that vocab. So what you're doing for your paper is you're going to choose a specific show that intrigues you, or a movie, or an artist, you know, whether it's a writer or a musician. That's your media, right? When we're talking about this, we're going to be talking about your specific media. Please don't pick a genre, right? No, you may not write a paper about hip hop. You may not write a paper about anime. It's too broad. You got to narrow it down to somebody specific so you can find better sources to support your assertions. Despite telling you this, somebody in the class is going to pitch me, oh, I want to write about the way that gender is discussed in hip hop. And please don't be that person. Please pick somebody specific, or better yet, just do TV or movies, which I think is a little bit easier. There's more sort of critical media theory stuff written about visual art nowadays than about music. So consider whether your media portrays race, class, gender, LGBTQ issues, or gender in a typical fashion or an atypical fashion, right? So there's a system of stereotypes that are depicted normally on television and in movies, and we started dealing with that last week with Molly Ringwald. So I think that a lot of creators, a lot of creative people are being more conscious of the way that these issues are portrayed nowadays. So we see more atypical depictions. We see depictions that break what were previously normal patterns, like, you know, the same example again, people wearing glasses always being nerds, or what have you. So how do you know what a typical depiction is? If you're a television watcher, if you watch movies, if you're engaged in popular culture at all, you probably have some sense of what typical is or what atypical is. Hopefully some of the articles that we're reading are starting to illuminate some of these issues. You do have to do research to corroborate what typical is and what atypical is, right? If you can't find info specifically on your media, you might consider finding info on the media's genre. And this is not to say that you may write on genre. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So you may not write about The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead are going to be the example that I always use. I think it's the example that the most people understand. The character Daryl is a working class guy. Typically, actually, I'm going to back it up. He's a working class guy. So we're considering how class is typically portrayed in zombie shows. So if I do a bunch of searches, class in zombie shows, I don't find anything. I might broaden my search. What kind of show is a zombie show? Well, that's a horror show, right? So we can talk about depictions of class in horror shows. and we might find some examples there. So typically working class people aren't treated kindly in horror movies. They're typically the first to go. They're the butt of the joke, right? In The Walking Dead, Daryl survives a long time because he's useful and he's resourceful, right? So this isn't a common thing in terms of the way that class is depicted, right? This is an atypical depiction because instead of depicting Daryl in the same way that working class people are usually shown, which is being cannon fodder, he's being depicted atypically as somebody who's useful, right? So we're going to find some specific examples from the show that show that he's useful. We're going to find some specific examples that show that working class people generally aren't treated kindly in horror or zombie movies, and we should be on our way. You don't have to pick all of these issues. If you try and write a paper, your paper about all 4 of these, it's not going to be very good. Just pick 1 or 2 and really dig into them. Feel free to use any of the ideas from class that we've talked about. Certainly the Bechdel test and the Duvernay test, which we're going to talk about this week in the discussion board, are both really important ideas. Right? You can use the idea of the mystical African American if you like. So anything that's in the textbook, anything that's in the web pages I'm going to provide this week or next week, it's all fair game. Right? What you're doing is you're using media theory to construct your argument. Before you begin your research, please know the answer to these questions. What specific media are you talking about? What show, right? What movie? What artist, right? You got to get it narrow. Are you focusing on race, class, LGBTQ issues, gender, or what, or some combination thereof? And what's the combination? And does your media or show portray these things typically or atypically? So do they tend to be stereotypical or do they tend to break stereotypes? So there we go. If you have any questions, get at me as soon as you can, mfournier@hcc.edu. But I think you can do this, right? Thanks for watching this video. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Good luck. Peace.